The flashing red and blue lights reflected off his marble columns before he even stepped out of the car. He hadn't been home 5 minutes before someone tried to have him removed from his own mansion. This story will reveal how a simple misunderstanding turned into the most embarrassing moment of an HOA president's life and why she never questioned him again. Daniel Whitmore had been gone for 3 months overseeing renovations on a commercial project overseas. His mansion sat quietly behind wrought iron gates in the upscale Briarwood Estates. He paid his dues on time. He kept his property immaculate. He rarely even attended meetings, but Briarwood had recently elected a new HOA president. Her name was Linda Crawford. Linda believed in order, in structure, in making sure no one stepped out of line. When she saw an unfamiliar truck parked in Daniel's circular driveway that afternoon, she didn't recognize the man unloading luggage. She didn't knock, she didn't ask, she called the police, and when Daniel stepped out, keys in hand, watching 2 patrol cars roll toward his front steps, he realized something had changed while he was gone. What Linda didn't know was about to change everything. The officers approached politely, asking Daniel to identify himself. Linda stood behind them, arms crossed, confident she had protected the neighborhood. "He doesn't live here," she insisted. "The owner's been gone for months." Daniel calmly pulled out his wallet and handed over his ID. The name matched the property records. The address matched the driver's license. The officer's expression shifted. Linda's didn't. She doubled down, explaining that no real homeowner would return in a moving truck without notifying the board first. Daniel explained it wasn't a moving truck, it was his contractor's vehicle. Neighbors began gathering, whispers started spreading. The officers confirmed ownership through dispatch. Daniel Whitmore was not just the homeowner, he was one of the largest financial contributors to the HOA reserve fund. The tension thickened in the warm evening air. Then Linda did something that stunned even the officers. She accused him of falsifying records, and that accusation would cost her far more than she realized. The officers remained calm, but their patience thinned. False reporting is not something taken lightly. Daniel said nothing at first. He simply walked toward his front door and unlocked it with biometric entry. The system chimed softly as it recognized him. Linda's face paled. The officer asked her directly, "Ma'am, do you have proof this isn't his residence?" She didn't. Instead, she claimed the board had authority to verify residency. Daniel quietly retrieved a framed certificate from the foyer, the official deed transfer from when he purchased the property outright, years before Linda even moved into Briarwood. The crowd murmured. Linda's voice grew defensive. She insisted she was protecting the neighborhood. But the officers began explaining the seriousness of filing an unfounded complaint. Daniel remained composed, but inside, he felt something shift. This wasn't just a mistake. It was arrogance, and then dispatch confirmed something else over the radio, something Linda hadn't anticipated. She had made 2 prior false calls this month. The mood changed instantly, and Linda's confidence cracked for the first time. The officers stepped aside to speak privately with Linda. Neighbors pretended not to watch, but no one missed a word. Daniel stood calmly near his fountain, hands in his pockets, observing the unraveling of someone who had tried to remove him from his own home. Linda's tone shifted from assertive to defensive. She claimed she had reasonable suspicion. But suspicion without evidence becomes a problem. The officers informed her that repeated false emergency calls can result in charges. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was procedural. The crowd's whispers turned into stunned silence. Daniel didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply waited. Then came the moment no one expected. The officers asked Linda to step forward and place her hands behind her back for further processing related to misuse of emergency services. Gasps echoed across manicured lawns. Daniel's mansion lights glowed behind him, steady and unbothered, and in that surreal moment, the power dynamic of Briarwood Estates shifted forever. But this wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something much bigger. Linda was not taken away in chaos, she was escorted quietly, dignity intact but authority shattered. Daniel felt no triumph, only disbelief. Neighbors approached him slowly, apologizing on her behalf. Some admitted they had felt intimidated by her strict enforcement tactics. Daniel listened. He realized this wasn't personal. It was systemic. The HOA board had given one person too much unchecked power. Within days, emergency meetings were scheduled. Linda was suspended pending review. The bylaws were examined more closely than ever before, and that's when Daniel discovered something unexpected. The HOA charter included a rarely referenced clause requiring board members to complete annual legal compliance training. Linda had never completed it. The oversight wasn't small. It meant her decisions over the past year were technically invalid. The community was stunned, and suddenly, Daniel wasn't just the homeowner who had been wrongly accused, he became the voice that pushed Briarwood toward accountability. But the final twist hadn't happened yet. At the next HOA meeting, the room was packed. Daniel rarely attended before, now every seat was filled. He didn't attack Linda. He didn't humiliate her. Instead, he calmly presented documentation, deed records, incident reports, and the overlooked compliance clause. The room shifted from tension to realization. Linda, seated quietly at the front, understood the gravity of what had unfolded. Her attempt to assert authority had exposed procedural failures within the entire board. A vote was called, new compliance standards were passed unanimously, independent oversight was added, and the culture of fear quietly dissolved. Daniel never asked for revenge. He asked for fairness. The police incident became a turning point not just for Linda, but for Briarwood itself, and in the end, the mansion stood exactly as it always had, only now, it represented something more than luxury, it represented balance restored. But there was one final moment that sealed everything. Weeks later, Linda approached Daniel personally, no cameras. No audience. No authority. She apologized, not just for calling the police, but for assuming control without understanding responsibility. Daniel accepted, because the real victory wasn't her embarrassment, it was the restoration of respect in a neighborhood that had forgotten it. The flashing lights that once reflected against his marble columns became nothing more than a story told quietly at gatherings. And the shocking twist everyone expected, it wasn't revenge, it was accountability. Linda had called the cops on the rightful owner of the mansion, and instead of removing him, the system corrected her. Authority without humility had consequences, and Briarwood Estates would never forget the evening when assumptions met reality at the gates of Daniel Whitmore's home, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.